Okay, so initially, before catching up to Black Clover, I was predominantly an anime-only watcher, at least for the most part. I read a bit after the anime went to its first big filler arc, which took place earlier last year, including the anime canon stuff and whatnot, but I took it upon myself recently to get fully caught up to the Black Clover manga to see what all the hype was about. Because for all I know, the Black Clover fandom has been going absolutely crazy these past few weeks, and I wanted to find out why. And now, being caught up to date with the manga Black Clover, I can see why. And I hate to admit it, but I was downplaying the likes of Black Clover. And basically, a quick rundown of just my experience with Black Clover overall prior to catching up to the manga was like a lot of other people. I found the Black Clover anime to be pretty repetitive when it came to the shonen category. Although I didn't necessarily hate it because I did stick around the series week by week after the first couple of arcs of the series. And actually, I feel like when you're with the series for a decent amount of time, especially when it's a week to week anime, it can start to get boring really fast if there isn't a lot going on. And for Black Clover, I kind of had this feeling that this anime was just another Naruto and One Piece clone, give or take. The magic in the series wasn't all that special to me. I mean, I guess the ideal take on a grimoire was quite interesting. Also, not to mention the role of a certain assigned Magic Knight Brigade was also something that kept me driven within the series. But overall, foregoing the anime of Black Clover, there just wasn't that attraction that got me super invested into the series early on. But like any other continuous watcher and a reader of Black Clover, I sat and waited patiently. And because at the same time of me going on about things I dislike about the series or just didn't find interesting at the time, there always was that little bit of hope I had with this series. And now with myself officially being caught up to the manga Black Clover, I can confidently say that now Black Clover has solidified itself as its own original series with inspiration from some of the best shonen anime and manga that came before it. So that's pretty much why today I'm going to go over the series of Black Clover as a whole briefly and give up my thoughts on the current serializing chapters of the Black Clover manga. So without further ado, this are my thoughts on the series of Black Clover. So I guess to start things off, I kind of wanted to go with the manga route first, mainly because it's what's fresh on my mind, and to talk a little bit about the appeal of Black Clover now during the time skip. Remarkably though, Black Clover's time skip was kind of like a reset button. The way Tabata executed this transition was unlike any other Shonen Jump time skip. Within this 6-month period of training, the characters of Black Clover were able to learn and train so much on a level we haven't seen in most characters of Shonen Jump during their time skip. I felt as if this was a perfect way to segment things into a new saga for Black Clover, and with that came many new boundaries from characters we had never thought would be able to improve so dramatically. But not only just that, this is where things in the Black Clover universe start to get a little hectic. And I know previously Black Clover had some stakes being made that rose to the roof on the Clover Kingdom and whatnot, but this time Tabata decided to go all in, and not only on just a dark triad from the Spade Kingdom, but to explore with Norse and Greek mythology while still working out the details of the underworld itself. And that to me is something I see playing a huge role within the Black Clover world. And I can clearly see the direction Yuki Tabata is trying to go in, and I'm all for it. And then now that the stakes are at an all-time high right now in Black Clover, it's just setting up perfectly for the future of this series. And additionally, with all the lore and character growth that has been going on, which is honestly some of the most important pieces to making a good series, there are also its amazing share of fights and transformations to add on to it. And I would argue within the time skip alone that we have already had some of our best fights in this series so far, being Asta and Yami versus Dante, as well as Yuno versus Zenon, Noelle versus Vanica. The list goes on for the other Magic Knights and Captains as well. With all things considered though, if you have not started reading the Black Clover manga for whatever the reason and you're watching this video now, then go ahead and finish this video because at this point you already know the gist of the time skip portion of the story. And I know I basically mentioned this earlier, but comparing Black Clover's pre-time skip to post-time skip, there definitely has been a dramatic improvement, at the very least from a narrative standpoint. And from the very beginning of Black Clover, there were some things that I found rather interesting, but for the most part, the series was starting off kind of bland and boring compared to other series in Shonen Jump. But to make up for it, Black Clover effectively found itself as its own original series, with of course some big inspiration from multiple manga and history across the board. And I could easily tell that at the start of Black Clover, Yuki Tabata was very much inspired from other big shonen manga, and he knew what he wanted to accomplish with this series. It's just that it definitely needed some time so that this manga could follow a successful shonen format. And now looking back on it, Black Clover did the right thing. I think that especially in this industry, it's very hard to find something innovative early on, because not a lot of people are really gonna like the series if it's not something that at least has been done before. And now that Black Clover solidified its spot in the rankings of Shonen Jump, it's well earned enough to branch off and conquer the series in its own unique way. And now, as much as I've been giving this series props for what it's become, there are definitely still some things that I'm curious to say the least about. For starters, one thing especially during the post-time skip of the manga is the amount of tragedies that occur. I mean, don't get me wrong, with how the manga is pacing out and showing each and every single one of these fights, especially early on during the time skip, it's amazing to see how good and consistent they they can maintain. But the problem is that during these fights, they run a high enough risk of killing off some characters in a respectful way, but multiple times throughout this arc alone, there have been moments where characters could have died and they just didn't, mainly because of the plot-driven narrative of this arc. And then there's times they do kill off certain few characters, obviously that we had seen previously in the series as background characters, not even considerably enough to be a side character though, and they die, but there really is no true meaning behind their death, therefore it isn't very satisfying towards the reader. But as for the characters that don't die, it's usually because of a new magic ability, and we've seen this happen with of course William's World Tree magic, and with Gray's new learned healing magic, which if you ask me is kind of plot armor, but it's a give or take on that one. But something that to some people might be a misconception, but to me stands out pretty strong, especially during this binge, is the amount of transformations from a wide variety of characters. And look, I get that we just finished a time skip, and I get that that's all about the training that went into it, but I can't stray away from that is simply a lot, and it's happening too fast, at least in my eyes. Maybe I'm just looking into it too much, but to me, it just seems like everything's just coming in so fast. I feel like every chapter there's a new transformation, and I mean, it's cool and all, but I just think it's happening too fast. And I think that especially with Asta's training that is currently still going on as of chapter 280, that he will probably show up to the Spade Kingdom with a brand new form in a span of a few days. And I'm trying to stick away from a ton of spoilers here, just mainly because it is a series that you should start checking out if you haven't already. But enough of my opinions on what's still wrong with the series, let's move on to something a bit more interesting. The future of Black Clover. What's next and what lies ahead for the Black Clover manga? Well, this is all a theory, but the first thing that comes to mind is that I think directly after this arc, depending on how it ends, it could be a great introduction to other species and races within Black Clover. Because of course, going back to it, Yuki Tabata is heavily influenced by Norse and Greek mythology, so you already know that races and species along the lines of angels, giants, minotaurs, centaurs, fairies, etc. are a huge likability within the world of Black Clover. And not only just that, but the widespread of land, not only just in the Clover Kingdom alone, but other countries and continents as well that are outside of just the card countries we know, are also another large appealing source that can be added to the universe of Black Clover. And I think that with all things lining up for this series, there is so much potential to range from within Black Clover, and if what Yuki Tabata says is true about it trying to be as long as One Piece and Naruto, then maybe, just maybe, Black Clover might just solidify itself as one of the best modern pieces of Shonen Jump. But to everyone who made it to the end of the video, I hope you all did enjoy the video. I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of holding this one off for a little while, just mainly because I was a bit lazy to read Black Clover, but I'm glad I finally got to it because it was definitely worth the wait. And make sure before you head on out to leave a like on the video and drop a comment on your thoughts on the series of Black Clover overall. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and join the Discord if you have not already. I'm not sure if I'm going to be revamping the Discord soon or making an entire new one, but make sure to join the one in the description and I'll be sure to let you all know. And with that everyone, my Twitter is @AnimeAlki, and I'll make sure to catch each and every single one of you guys in the next video. Peace.